For much of its history, the Monster Mile at Dover International Speedway has seen some unusual drivers and teams fill out the field. After all, this was the site of J.D. McDuffie's only pole, Jody Ridley's only win, and Freddie Crawford's only last-place finish. Each of these drivers tell an interesting story, most often last-place battles of years past. I recently picked up some old slides from the Dale and Janice Rossi collection, many of which depict some of these unusual teams. Today I'm talking about one perfect example, a driver named James Rollin J.R. Charbonneau. On September 19, 1982, Charbonneau made his only career Cup start in the CRC Chemicals 500. He was from Spokane, Washington, which was still rare in the sport at the time. The only surviving son of a Latin teacher and a math teacher, Charbonneau raced cars and hydroplanes and also flew helicopters. Friends said he built, fixed, and drove most any mobile craft man has devised, except trains. He also had a day job as president of Spokane AMC Jeep. In June of that year, he was featured proudly in this newspaper ad. Charbonneau's opportunity in NASCAR came through none other than Buck Baker, the two-time Cup Series champion who had run his last Cup race in 1976. 4 years later, Baker opened the Buck Baker Racing School, which in the years to come would hold courses at 7 tracks, including Dover. By '82, Baker had also returned to team ownership, something he hadn't done since 1971. Fielding the same number 87 that he campaigned for much of his driving career, the Buck Baker Racing team made its return at Pocono on July 25, 1982. Behind the wheel of their Pontiac was Tom Hessert Jr., father of Tom Hessert III, today's 6-time winner in the ARCA Menard Series. Tom Jr. finished next to last that day at Pocono, out with steering problems after 8 laps. Edging him by a single lap was Jody Ridley, the first last-place finish of his own career. Like Charbonneau, this turned out to be Tom Jr.'s only career Cup start. 2 months later, Charbonneau's run at Dover was the next start for the Baker team. It's likely, though not entirely clear, that Charbonneau had graduated from Baker's racing school. If so, the lessons certainly helped. The rookie qualified 25th in the 35-car field, clocking in at 130.477 miles per hour. This put him ahead of multiple owner drivers, including J.D. McDuffie, Jimmy Means, James Hilton, and Giacomo Giacomo. Racing-reference.info currently lists Charbonneau's car as a Buick, but as you can see from this slide, it is again a Pontiac. A couple interesting details you'll notice in this picture. First, the car is listed with Buck Baker Racing School as primary sponsor, but there's only a small decal on the C-post. Second, of course, is the noticeable damage and the concrete dust on the white rims. To find out what happened, you only need to watch the opening seconds of Diamond P Sports' first installment of their famous video series, And They Walked Away.
J.R. Charbonneau got himself off track on the back straight and learned firsthand how it got the nickname. I talked to him.
Okay, well, they call this the Monster Mile. What do you think after running it now? Well, I'll tell you, it is Monster Mile. It's a whole lot of fun.
The second slide shows Charbonneau pulling out of pit road, indicating he attempted to continue despite the damage suffered in that accident. He'd ultimately complete 118 laps before he fell out, leaving him 32nd, 3 spots out of last place. He took home just $650 in winnings. In 1983, Spokane AMC Jeep changed locations, and Charbonneau also started selling Renaults. The company would sponsor ASA races at the Northwest Speedway, where he was listed as among the big names, with the likes of Don Dowdy, Ron Hall, and Chad Little. Racing Reference lists his 5 NASCAR Northwest Tour starts in 1985, with the best finish of 8th in Yakima, driving a Pontiac sponsored by his own dealership. In 1987, he was also entered in the stock car portion of the Copper World Classic at Phoenix. Meanwhile, Buck Baker would continue to field Cup cars on a part-time basis through the 1992 season, most often for his son Randy Baker, brother of 1980 Daytona 500 winner Buddy Baker. Randy's best finish would come in 1987, when he finished 17th in the Coca-Cola 600. He fared even better in ARCA, finishing 8th one time each on the superspeedways in Daytona and Talladega. Today, Randy continues to operate his father's racing school, which is now known as Buck Baker's Seat Time Racing School. Last year, on June 26, 2020, J.R. Charbonneau died at age 78, 2 years after his wife Kay, to whom he was married for more than 50 years. His obituary reads, "Jim is remembered by his friends and loyal neighbors as being a man who would do anything for his family and his pets, who was living life with the excitement of a child, who would plow your driveway when you needed it, who would buy you almonds just because he saw it was your snack of choice, who would pay you extra to give his beloved dog Tori a treat, and who would take the time to find out how your day was going. This is the story of the real J.R. and shall live on, superseding any other published material. Every driver who has even once fired the engine on the grid of a NASCAR stock car race has a story of their own, one that extends well beyond where they actually finished. And I look forward to presenting more of these stories in future videos.
In America, there exists a sport that is driven by the fans. They are why everyone works so hard, on the teams and at the tracks, in front of the grandstands and behind the scenes, to give the fans the greatest race possible. NASCAR fans deserve the best, starting from the high banks of Daytona, all the way to the shores of California, and at every race in between. NASCAR fans, you're the reason for our success. Thanks.